Today, we're going to talk about 5 things that you need to know to practice Czerny on the piano. The first thing that you need to know is that Czerny exercises are a little bit unique. They're classified as technical exercises, but as far as technical exercises go, they're really musical. A lot of them are like individual little pieces of music that teach you very specific concepts and where you can focus in on certain techniques that you're working on or even certain theory concepts that you're working on to understand in these small snippets that are a little bit more digestible than huge pieces of music. And so because of that, I really like to use these exercises in like a hybrid format where I will assign them to my students, and I'll usually assign like 1 per week-ish, and we'll really dive into that exercise, even if it's below their ability, even if it feels easy, so that we can get the most out of that exercise as possible. The second thing that you need to know in order to practice Czerny on the piano is what the purpose of the exercise is. There are a ton of Czerny exercises. I mean, the guy wrote like hundreds and hundreds of exercises. And if you're just opening the book and playing through these exercises haphazardly and then moving on to the next one, you're really missing an opportunity to get a lot of bang for your buck with these exercises. You can get theory studies, technical studies, musicality studies, all from little tiny exercises from the Czerny collections. So here's one of my favorites, and you can see from the way that I'm playing it that there's a lot of hand crossing. My left hand is starting in the bass, going up over the right hand very frequently. You can hear that the melody is in that left hand. So as my left hand is jumping back and forth, it's creating the melody, and the right hand is very quiet, and the articulation marked in the score is portato. And so just from those 2 things alone, we can tell that this exercise is meant to strengthen our geography of the keys, of knowing how and where to jump on the piano. And it's also meant to help your right hand keep a nice, quiet, and gentle touch, while your left hand works on bringing out a melody. And that's just on first glance. I mean, I could probably list off like 3 or 4 other things that this exercise would help with, but those are the things that are immediately obvious upon hearing. So whenever you look at an exercise, you want to look at the articulation, the rhythm, where the melody is, what the dynamics are, what the tempo marking is, what chords or scale patterns you see. Take into account all of those things to really get to the deeper purpose of this exercise. And figuring out the purpose of an exercise can be tricky, and that's something that we talk about in the Casual to Confident Piano Player program that I recently relaunched. And so if you need some help with that and you'd like some feedback, you can either comment on this video or go ahead and check out that program. I'll link it in the description below. You can book a call with me. I'm happy to take a look at some of the technical exercises that you're working on. It's an incredibly effective way for people to improve their piano skills really quickly with that direct feedback. The third thing that you really need to know to practice Czerny on the piano is how to sit with the proper alignment. Whenever we are talking about technical exercises, or really, honestly, whenever we're doing anything on the piano, it is so important to sit with proper alignment. And I talk about this a lot, so it's that important. We want to sit up nice and tall. We want to make sure that we don't have tension in our shoulders. We want to make sure that we're sitting at the proper height and the proper distance from the keys. We want to make sure that we can utilize the full weight of our arms when we're producing sound at the piano. Specifically with technical exercises or with pieces that are meant to be played really quickly, or examples like we see all over in the Czerny, we're going to cause tension if we try to play these examples not sitting in the proper alignment. And the reasoning is because we really need that full functionality of our body and our arms and our hands and our wrists and everything to support what is required in these pieces. They are technically demanding. And so if we're sitting with improper alignment, it will lead to tension, and it could ultimately lead to injury, and we definitely want to prevent that. So I will link in the description a ton of videos that I have about proper alignment, and you can check those out to make sure and to double check that you are sitting with proper alignment and that you're setting yourself up for success in that way. The fourth thing that you need to know in order to practice Czerny on the piano is how to stay relaxed and loose. And this one is kind of similar to number 3 because you need to be in proper alignment in order to stay relaxed and loose. But I want you to check in with yourself as you practice these exercises. And I want you to make sure that you're breathing, and that as you work on the exercises, you're not getting so into them that you lose track of time, or that you tense up, or that you stop breathing. Oftentimes when students are working on scales or technical exercises, things like Czerny, they'll stop breathing and I can see it. I can see their chests stop moving. I can see their shoulders slowly creeping up to their ears. And we really want to prevent that. So when you're working on these little exercises, I recommend writing breathe into your music to actually give yourself that visual reminder to take a deep breath frequently when you're working on these exercises. Specifically, if there's a spot in the music that you know you make mistakes on frequently or that you feel is extra challenging, those are great spots to write breathe because that will help you relax. It'll give you a little reminder not to let tension creep in. I have a couple of videos about how to relax at the piano, how to stay loose, how to be aware of tension, and awareness is really the first thing we need in order to know if we're experiencing tension at the piano. Check out that video, I'll link it in the description below. The fifth thing that you need to know in order to practice Czerny on the piano is that you need to make things musical. The whole goal of proper technique at the piano is to support our desire to express and to create music at the piano. And so that means that whatever we're practicing, we need to keep musicality in mind. Things like articulation and dynamics and phrasing, and we want to make sure that we aren't just turning into a robot and playing notes in time or playing notes really quickly. We have to express ourselves. We have to actually follow the dynamics and the articulation. So when you look at these exercises, it might be tempting to just play them as fast as possible, but I want you to slow down and really try to find the musicality in them. It can be a fun extra challenge, especially if you open up an exercise and you're like, this is boring, this doesn't sound like music. Make it music, make it musical. Use that as a challenge to yourself to add dynamics, to maybe add some articulations, to try to make it as interesting and musical as possible. And if you need some suggestions on how to be musical or how to incorporate musicality into your technical exercises, I just did a 1-hour boot camp on how to play musically, and that's available as a replay. And I'm going to link that replay in the description below because that would be a great place to start if you're feeling like being musical is kind of ambiguous and you're not quite sure exactly how to practice dynamics and phrasing and things like that. And you can go ahead and check that video out right now.